Okay, just like
All right. All right. So you want to pull up something on politics or something or what?
yeah, I
Or
figure we
no?
should talk about. I mean, we should talk about Kamala Harris losing horribly to Donald Trump. Like there was a significant difference there with the electoral votes. It's quite embarrassing, and she didn't
So
even win the
surprising.
popular vote. Yeah, it was. It was surprising. I mean, honestly, look, okay. So from my point of view as a political scientist in training, because I don't have a PhD yet, I knew she was going, I had a feeling she was going to lose. Like I had a feeling that Donald Trump would win the electoral college just because of the way I view like the oligarchic situation of America and the racist, like anti-women propellant that the elite do. And so I was like, okay, he might win the electoral college, but I assumed that she would win the popular vote, and she didn't. She
Nope.
didn't win the popular vote, so it was surprising.
No, I saw it was I saw a graph somewhere said white males were even more for Trump than they were last time, and so were white females. And then also uh Latin men and women were both more for Trump than they were last time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm from so being in Florida, I could tell is Trump like so I'm in a community where there's a lot of Latin Americans, and I know that my community doesn't reflect everyone else's community, but in one sense, lived experience, like I've said before, matters. So I was aware that a lot of Latinos were for Trump. So I was like, I don't know what the Democratic Party is talking about. You guys really have to earn that Democratic vote because the Latinos right now are really loving Trump. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's what happened.
Do you think it's an economy thing, or do you think it's like, as they say on Twitter, like a misogyny thing? I know that they were all for Clinton in 2016. They were very high for Clinton in 2016, and since then the Democrats have not garnered the Hispanic vote,
Yeah.
like at all.
It depends on the migration trends, right? A lot of the Hispanic vote is coming from people who've migrated to the United States from socialist regimes and authoritarian regimes, so they tend to vote more conservative than leftists, just because they're from countries that, like Venezuela, like countries that have championed socialist views but haven't delivered. So they go towards the conservative perspective. And also because I feel like a lot of Hispanics are religious and Catholic, and even though the Republican Party is very Protestant, they align themselves more with that Christian viewpoint of no abortion, man is the head of the household, no pronouns, she, her, whatever. Like LGBTQ people are not really accepted, even though the church itself has like expanded rights to the LGBTQ community. I mean, the Pope Francis was like, the LGBTQ community is like part of society and we should accept them, and only God knows like who is part of the kingdom or whatever. And so it's just weird. But nonetheless, culturally, they're very conservative, the ones that have migrated. And also the American dream. Like the Republican
Hmm.
Party likes to feed the American dream a lot with like business, small business, you support business, we're very like capitalist drive. Well, the Democratic Party uses that a little bit, but not as much, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, you said the American dream. Well,
Yeah, like the Republican Party uses it a lot more than the Democratic Party. I know Kamala talked about her family and she was like, I came from a middle class family and we're the American dream. But the Republican Party tends to really push forward the idea that they are pro small business, while the Democratic Party does not really mention small businesses. They just mention
what that
that,
ends up
yeah.
what that ends up meaning is like what happened in California, where they wanted to raise the minimum wage to $18, and that was struck down. So small business, yeah, yeah. I run an aquarium, and my pay my guys $15 an hour. No, no, I don't want $3 an hour extra just because. No, no. So that's not cute. That's like mom and pops, shops trying to um. It's like creating more of a class distance. It's you know, their American dream is exploiting their workers, and they don't. No one's going to come out and say that, but that's what's happening. That's why not liking regulation and it's a very selfish sort of idea of the American dream. I want to I um I don't think people are coming to America with the dream of fucking over their employees. So when Republicans talk about the American dream, what they're talking about is the the right to start a mom and pop company and exploit local youth in the town. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like a that's not that's not the it's a bastardization of the American dream.
Right. We view it as exploitation, while the Republican Party views it as standing for the defense of business owners.
Right. Yeah, no,
Right.
I know. It's just like when yeah, I know they see it as that or they say they see it as that. It's choosing themselves over other people. It's a very I have mine and I don't care about you having yours. Um I'm talking about what happened in Pennsylvania as well. Like almost 100,000 Amish came out and voted for the first time, and this kind of demonstrates this very selfish idea of of the American dream of the they they came out and voted for Trump overwhelmingly because
Yeah, I
there
saw
was
that.
a yeah um, they they sell raw milk and raw cheese. A lot of farmers don't like the regulations put on them to make them uh, I don't know all the science that goes into it, but pasteurization of dairy. They don't like that process. It costs them money, it costs time, and local farmers love to go over each other's houses and drink their milks, I guess. I I visited a few farms um, in upstate New York, and they were really big proponents on being able to sell and distribute raw milk. Earlier this year, two people died from a listeria outbreak in the area of the farms that I visited in upstate New York. More people got listeria. Two people died from it, and one guy was charged. Um, and that just demonstrates the need for regulation like that. And to say that the opposing regulation that makes people safe is epitomizes the American dream. It really sounds just like a desperate attempt to keep your livelihood. It's like you're you're admitting that in order for you to make money, you have to put people in danger, and the government shouldn't get in the way of that. What kind of dystopian reality do you want to live in? You know?
Right. Well, I feel like the Amish were voting for Trump because he championed for states' rights. And the Amish do not want to be regulated by the national government. And Trump was the only candidate, really, who was very frank about wanting to give states more rights, which makes sense, right? He says he kept saying, "We'll leave it up to the states. Anything will leave up to the states." He kept mentioning that during his campaign trail, and that was the difference between him and Kamala Harris. So it makes sense that the Amish who want to preserve their cultural communities would want to vote for a candidate that preserves states' rights because it's easier to preserve your own culture in that small knit community with state rights.
Well, it's just a surprise that the Amish, one of the part of the Amish's culture is to shirk regulation and put people in danger. It's just a weird thing to stand for.
Yeah, yeah. Kamala hasn't talked yet. She hasn't done her concession speech.
No,
I
let him sweat. I don't know.
don't know. That's
I don't
weird.
know. Um, but there was all that talk about stealing the election, and it's I don't see it happening. I saw on it was on Twitter a lot last night. And they were saying that despite leftists' best efforts, the votes were just too overwhelming for Trump. Like you know,
What's sad is that if you actually analyze ideologies, you would see that the Trump campaign is manipulating ideas that are traditionally far left, like working class rights and increasing the rights of people who are in poverty. They're like manipulating that in their campaign, that and the left isn't doing that. Like it's like they took a portion of socialist views and turned it into this like fascist capital. And that's what fascism is actually, to be honest with you. It's like you take like part of the
populism.
working class ideology, yeah, and you
Mm,
manipulate it, but it's for capitalism instead of for actual egalitarian principles that try to equate the surplus of capital towards the population.
right. So there's a class of people who aren't um, totally poor, and you just convince them that they are and that they're entitled to more, and you make believe that people who are poorer than them are trying to take from them. It's like you can be populist and uh, authoritarian at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Both on the
It's
left
the
and the
Warren.
right. You can be populist and authoritarian and be both on the left and the right. You can have both ideologies and be authoritarian and not believe in democracy. I mean, look at China, look at Russia.
I see this. Um, what's his name? The Fox. Rupert Murdoch. Rupert. Uh,
Okay, I can't see what you're trying to show me.
yeah, I know. I know.
Oh, I've seen this. Yeah, I've seen
Right.
this.
So the overall consensus here. The rich person telling the poor people that their real enemy isn't their bosses who are exploiting them. It's 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 just other people who are in the same position as them
Right, the foreigner.
who are
So it's a different position. The foreigner is new to the system, while the worker has been in the system for quite some time.
right. The worker has some entitlement in his mind that he's entitled to something. Um, I don't think I I think we're on the same page. It's just that people who have been here have this crutch that the the ruling class can just use whenever they want. They know how to use it.
We just live in a bad system. So uh there's this guy who's very popular with business. His name is Edward Stemmings, and one of his most famous quotes was that a bad system will beat a good person every time. So whether you actually think that the Democrats are good people, I we can argue that. But when it comes to trying to serve others, I think that is a good quality to have, and I think most people would agree. And that's not something that it seems like Trump really is propelling. He's saying he's. I mean, to be fair, he is saying in his camp. He was saying in his campaign trail that we're trying. He was trying. He wants to fix America because it's broken and it needs to heal. But the issue is that if the system is bad, then it doesn't matter who wins. It will be beaten by a person who wants that, who's part of that system.
Mm.
So Edward Demings was right. I want to talk about the fact that the left, um, who doesn't necessarily align themselves with the Democratic Party, but has no choice but to do so, was very pushy,
Oh
and
God.
they were so pushy. They really, the people in charge, as in the ones that have the most like vocal power, were stating that we had to vote for the Democrats.
Hmm.
Like it was either Kamala or Trump. And
I know.
I didn't see it that way. And I think a lot of leftists didn't see it that way. And my reasoning is that for any leftist organization to actually have power, they need sometimes to have or to be in an oppressive government. And sometimes, if you look at history, if you study Latin America, if you study Eastern Europe, like with what happened with Yugoslavia and other countries, you would see that the left socialists didn't gain power until they were controlled, the state was controlled by a fascist or rightist authoritarian regime. Why is that? Because people started realizing that that didn't work. And I feel like this country, America, is afraid for it to get worse before it gets better. And I
Yeah, because
believe that the socialist vision is the better option, but they're afraid to even allow for the cesspool of fascists to come out of their graves or
do you know
out of
why?
their like enclaves. Yes.
Do you know why that is? Do you know why we're afraid for it to get worse before it gets better? Because if it gets worse, we lose all the power and it never gets better. It's like you know all those revolutions were very violent. We want to avoid the violence. If we end
Right.
up
So
with
we're
the
just living
violence,
in we're living in tepid times then. So then what
well,
happens is
listen.
that nothing happens.
And then what happens is you hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you know, if there was a civil war, you know who has the guns, you know who'd win." I mean, yeah, we do. That's why we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. And I know you're saying, it sounds like you're saying it's inevitable if you want change.
Yeah,
Violence
it's
is inevitable
inevitable.
if you want
Yeah.
change. That's disgusting. Who the fuck wants to live there?
Right. Right.
Who the
Well,
fuck
that's what's
wants to live
happening.
there?
Right. That's what's happening. The fascists believe in violence.
Well, they're pushing for a
And
civil war.
right, they are. And
I don't
unfortunately,
want one.
there are a lot of people on the left that also believe in violence as a response to the fascist need of violence to be
Well, I'm
able to
listening to
oppress
you.
others. Hmm?
I'm listening to you, and it sounds like you think it's a good idea.
I believe in peace. I don't believe in violence. I do think that in order for people to reach a consensus that socialism is the answer, they need to really feel that capitalism is a failure as a system.
Dude, we're calling it late capitalism, late stage capitalism, not
Yes,
if
it's
not if
late
not
stage
end stage
capitalism.
capitalism. And in the
Right.
past 8 years, it's like we've seen it get worse. We knew it was getting worse. We knew it was getting. We were hoping that's the worst it could be, but I guess over the next 4 years we'll see. You know, I think this sort of thinking can lead to people who want a change thinking that uh, thinking that anything good that happens to the country under a Republican government is bad because it won't lead to change. It'll just make people complacent.
But the democratic government is the same. It leads people to complacency. Oligarchic rule is the same, which makes both the Republicans and the Democrats the same. They are the corporatist
I know you
class.
say that. I know they're both backed
They
by
totally are.
corporate interests. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not just that, but like they are the oligarchic rule. So it doesn't really matter what party right now in the United States. And until the common person accepts that, which a lot of academics have accepted, there will not be real change in the United States of America. We have one party that manipulates our civil rights in order to control economic progress when they deem fit. And then we have another party who's trying to conserve what they deem is the right value system in America while trying to gain economic value from that value system and maintain their economic power that they've had for generations. And so it's like, where does that leave the working class, right? As slaves, which is what's happening. And that's the problem. And until there is a strong government, whether that be a fascist authoritarian regime, to be able to actually shock the population of the United States of America into mobilizing and asking for rights, that's the only way I see it happening.
I think there's a hierarchy of people who they intend to cater to, and it goes white males, white people, people who look white, people who own land, own. So they're looking at those numbers real time, and that's why they're obsessed with this replacement shit.
The
So
replacement theory, yeah.
even if it gets worse, they're going to kowtow to the people on the top of that hierarchy until they have the numbers to back them, and it'll never change. That's why a shift would have been beneficial.
A
If
shift
we
in what
let it
way?
a
A
shift
shift
to
in
the
what way?
left, a
Right.
shift towards labor, but
Okay.
but now that it's not happening, it's it's like we're going to play uh like patronizing politics. We're gonna have some people um who are pro labor pretending to be pro owner
Mm.
until they are made to be owner, and then they will be full on right wing. It's just gonna it's like what you said earlier about the right using populist rhetoric to push fascist ideas, because those fascist ideas help the proletariat at the top of the hierarchy, and it separates them from the rest of it. And all they're doing is they're just picking off the top of that hierarchy, grabbing a nice stack of voters and catering towards them so that they just have enough voters to just keep right wing rulers in power.
Right. That's if you believe in the power of the vote in our democracy. I don't want to get into that right now. But if you actually believe that our voting is making a difference, then yeah, they're concentrated on trying to manipulate that vote.
Well, I just mean this: the population of these states that give them the most, that's why there's a red wall. It's like they um I know we're going to talk about the electoral college, and I'd rather kind of not. I don't know. We all know it's. I mean, I don't know the purpose of the electoral college. I used to. I heard people.
Yeah. I'd rather not get into it either. It shouldn't exist. I think
All
a
right.
lot of us leftists agree with that. I
Okay.
mean, I'm one of the leftists that believe in localized democracy, so the electoral college really shouldn't exist. What do we see in America's future now that Trump has won?
Um, I'm seeing Elon as cost cutting, which is um going to be a big shift in labor. I don't know what they're expecting to do. We've got he said he wants to be a dictator on day one, which is going to lead to mass deportations, like everybody's been printing on their signs and holding up. And then I'm seeing RFK as the head of the health.
Oh God, I hope not.
Well, that's the plan. And then we have um, Ukraine has been close with Biden, and then now that Trump, who is an open, um, who's open with all confidential information, so we're going to be cut off of communication. Our communication to the rest of the world is going to be cut off. They're not going to let us know anything anymore. Um, those are just some things, and then states' rights for abortion. So you'll see more. You've seen the numbers go up for the women who have been um, dying. It's going to go up. I mean, that's just it's going to happen. And then I'm trying to think of more.
Yeah, I'm concerned about LGBTQ rights,
Yeah,
and what that means with Trump winning. I know that the Republican Party has been more accepting of LGBTQ rights, but it seems like they're also accepting of um, opinions against the right to marriage equality and the right to have a family if you're LGBTQ. He says leave it up to the states. So I envision if it's, I mean, it's only 4 years, but if it's 8 years, like if it's someone like JD Vance, right, runs for president, he wins. I envision a migration between states.
right.
Um,
I'm also
yeah,
seeing um, that we will have JD Vance in the presidency. This man is
yeah,
old. Trump is old.
yeah.
We're gonna have, and we're gonna see sometime that he's going to pass on.
Right.
And what's gonna happen is what happened when um, oh, what's his damn name? That pastor a couple years ago who died, who was a huge name, and then he died, and then everyone's like remembering so and so, and then they all pretended that they were just totally just totally revered him, and that's what'll happen with
With Trump.
with Trump. Yeah.
I'm just
Uh,
concerned, like immediate changes. I'm concerned about immediate changes. So I was interviewed to work for the administration, for the Harris administration, and now that the Trump administration is going in, I'm just concerned about the changes that they will do because the Harris administration was very supportive of diversity, and I, as a person of color who was also LGBTQ, I was like, okay, that's great. Like I didn't feel discriminated against during the interview process. But I wonder what it would be like during the Trump administration if I
yeah.
continue with that process.
Do you foresee more people not coming out as LGBTQ, or at least not coming out as trans specifically? Because there's a lot of LGB alliance stuff where it's like, hey,
Oh my
we're
God.
gay conservatives.
Talking about trans. Okay. This is just my experience. I wear ties sometimes. Women wear ties. Okay? I think an
Right.
historian needs to educate conservatives that women have worn ties forever. So I've worn ties to the supermarket, and I mean once I sometimes wear ties, but the other day I live in a very conservative area, and I went to the supermarket with a tie on, and the glares that I was getting and the scoffs that I was getting through the male population, and
When was
the
this?
like this was 2 days ago, and the surprise I was getting by the women as if they were smirking because I was wearing a tie. And unless the conservatives have gotten better at telling who's LGBTQ or not, the political climate is really intense because all I was doing was wearing a tie. I wasn't with my partner, I wasn't with anything. I could have been completely straight wearing a tie. I identify as a woman,
Right.
and women have worn ties forever. I love wearing a tie.
Right.
I love fashion, right? So it's amazing. I feel like they should watch like TV, like ties. Even private schools have kids wearing ties, women,
Yeah.
children,
Avril Lavigne.
females, girls. Yeah, right. Even
Diane
Avril
Keaton.
Lavigne.
Diane
I
Keaton. Didn't they grow
know.
up in the 70s? Didn't
Yeah,
Generation X grow up in the 70s? Didn't they watch Manhattan or Woody Allen movies and see Diane Keaton? Like, what's wrong
right,
with?
with a tie.
I don't know, man.
It was
They're just on
yeah,
online too much. I
yeah,
think
no,
people are in.
it was Yeah, no, people are very, very sensitive to gender identity
Well,
right now, and I feel for the trans
insulated.
community.
So I think they're
Yeah,
insulated, so they have their little bubbles have different signifiers for what's LGBTQ. Like gay people would not think a woman in a tie is gay, but straight people do.
no,
You know what I mean? They
right,
think
yeah,
they think if you interviewed gay people, um, short fingernails are more of a giveaway than a tie,
it is. It is
bro.
more of a giveaway than a tie, yeah.
It's a
But now it's
joke.
changed, right? Now it's a lot of women have long fingernails. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was amazing. I was just like shocked at the tense circumstance I surrounded myself with. And this is a working class neighborhood as well. So I do know that the upper class right now, it's very fashionable to be wearing ties for women again. They're trying to bring that back. Ralph Lauren in the last fashion week in Paris
Yeah, but
premiered a lot of women with ties.
fashion
Yeah,
skews left.
yeah, but yeah, no, this community it was very tense. I felt it, so which is sad. But
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen in that sense with the LGBT community under
I
Trump.
think people are very they they're very trans cautious. I don't know where. I don't know why specifically that has come up. I think it's I think it was a chain to yank to get votes. I really don't think that anyone in politics gives a shit. But I if you look at Caitlyn Jenner's Twitter, it's just the most confusing shit on the planet. It's like she is so 100% for Trump and against trans rights. It's like they want to keep gender affirming surgery a thing for the elites. It's a weird. It's just a
That's
weird.
weird. That's
It's
weird.
really weird.
Yeah.
So let me go and find what we were talking about with P Diddy.
Yeah.
So you said P Diddy is tight with J Lo, or J Lo and P Diddy. J
Yeah.
Lo.
So apparently J-Lo and P. Diddy are tight. They're friends. He was a producer for her and her work. And she campaigned for Kamala. And a lot of people were like, we don't support that because she is probably tied to P. Diddy. I think it was tasteless on her end, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
yeah, I could see that. Um, yeah, I think a lot of celebrities that came out in favor of Harris, I think they wanted to be on the right side of history, and they're not considering their own reputation as a person and how kind of harmful it might be for the campaign. Not that it would have been saved by these people. Earlier in the week, Clinton comes out and says, things like Israel has a right to defend itself and all this stuff that like you expect from
Right.
all sorts of centrist Democrats that don't really speak for a lot of leftists. So I think you saw a lot of write-ins and things like that because of the disenfranchised voters.
Well, it's
This
weird
year,
because Taylor Swift came out to support Kamala Harris, and she was one of the
Mhm.
first celebrities to do so, but she wasn't added into the campaign. Then a lot of other celebrities came out after Taylor Swift, and Kamala Harris chose to use Jennifer Lopez. I guess she wanted the Puerto Rican vote. But to me, it backfired because Jennifer Lopez is tied to someone who is right now being investigated to be a sexual predator, a trafficker of children. And
Yeah,
it's just odd to me that they even use that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Diddy's more like Epstein than anybody on the left.
Oh yeah. Diddy
Um,
Diddy has a lot of money. He made a lot of money in the production business in the R&B world.
you know what's interesting about something I read. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before about Elon. What he's doing, him and Grimes are looking into houses to buy, like big mansions to buy for, so that Grimes, their kids, and then all of his past uh mothers of his children could all live together and raise their kids. Now this
Like a
sounds like
compound,
something,
a
yeah, well,
compound.
like a poly relate like a polycule, like
Yeah,
right,
like
right.
a
But
polyamorous
you know what?
compound.
You know what? That's interesting. because of all the talk about traditional nuclear families.
Marriage.
Remember, we were just talking
Yeah,
about nuclear
nuclear
families
family.
last episode.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, if you want to check that out on our last video, you can check out that out. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of an expanding on that. He that's what they're doing now, and it's I haven't seen any backlash at all. Like if someone came out and said that they lived like that, you'd hear it nonstop from. I mean, I shouldn't assume, but you can kind of tell how conservatives feel about those kind of relationships, and I think it's a point, just like the American Dream discussion we had earlier, where if you're doing something immoral, um, it's okay because uh, it's you. You're protecting your family. You're providing for your family and all that. And that's what they think. That's their idea of the American dream. Just because Elon employs people and that everybody wants to be part of what they see as a uh an option to do well, they change their how they feel about all this stuff. If when you have that kind of power, uh, you're changing norms and uh, you're changing the morals of everyone around you because they want to cater to you. They want to be part of your
Your community, your wealth. They want to be a part of your wealth.
yeah, they like his master
Yeah.
plan, even though it's just it's to many people it's just blind ambition. But just to be part of that, and it's the same thing with Trump too. Just they want to be near it somewhere, so the money shakes off onto them, and so they'll
Right,
put up with
power.
it.
They're power
Yeah.
hungry. Yeah. So they ignore the fact that he is not acting in the same way that he speaks. He supports nuclear families, but yet he seems to be pushing towards anything but, right?
So it's just interesting that uh, hypocrisy is seen as a really damning thing to some people, but as you can see, the real um, the real motivator is pragmatism. Whatever it takes. It's like Machiavellianism. It's like
Yeah, they're very Machiavellian.
I can be against being selfish, but if the alternative is losing my company and losing my family's livelihood, then I'm changing my morals.
Right,
I can
which is
be
what JD
selfish.
Vance has done. JD Vance has done that. JD Vance once was very outspoken against Trump,
I
and
know.
then now he's VP for Trump. Very interesting. And his wife was an Oxbridge graduate,
Mhm.
Clare College in Cambridge. Oh my God. Anyway, so they have
Yeah.
some British influence in the White House. She was voting for Democrats for a while, and then once her husband was on the Republican ticket, she changed to Republican, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of I'm thinking of the whole idea where you're a leftist when you're young, and then when you're old enough to start making some money, you become right wing. And I've
I,
always kind of fought against that idea. But
I
and
I have too. I feel like you can have money and be left wing. Some people think you can't.
I know it reminds me of people who get married, and then they just follow whatever their spouse's politics are. It's just easier not to shake the boat, rock the boat.
Right.
Um, and if that is the way most people feel about their politics, um, that's I don't have a solution for it. I just think it's kind of sad. I don't know what to do
They
about
just
it.
want money. They just want to be part of the oligarchic rule. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you ever see the Boondocks episode where um they make the analogy about a bucket of crabs. Like there's a crab that wants to get out and he's pulling himself out, but the other crabs don't want to see a crab get out, so they all pile on him and pull him back into the bucket. That's kind of like what. So
Makes sense.
yeah.
How,
Um.
like, how how much would you lie for power? That's what JD Vance reminds me of. How much would you change your morals for power? You're super educated. Your wife is Indian, and she's also very, very educated. So it's like you are literally manipulating your education and to be able to manipulate the working class to fit your agenda, and your agenda is to be able to rule, not govern, rule. And that's what I'm getting from them.
No, I know. It's a popularity contest, so they can get in. And that's pretty much all they care about.
It's disgusting, and I
Um.
think that we need to revolt.
Now, when I think about what's attractive to people about the conservatives, it's kind of like this quote. There's a few things. Uh, Here's Elon saying something very reasonable, which is, I mean, should we even platform him? But yeah, here. So J-Lo is like his ex-girlfriend, and now she's warning people against Donald Trump. How many people did she warn against Diddy, right? 0. Okay. Well, maybe we shouldn't trust her. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Also, he's in the top 20. I think he's like in the top 20 Diablo players or something like that. In reality, like he said he is, and then people checked and they went, "Oh wow, he is." I guess this is what Gen Z is hearing. So it's kind of like the only voices of reason are coming from these fascists. Just
Yeah, which is what's happening. So
um,
I I'm surprised to state that the Republican Party, like what I've said earlier, is that they've taken a lot of socialist viewpoints and made it their own. It's kind of like they're saying that we are the answer to the broken system. We're critiquing the system right now. The system is broken. They don't represent you. We will try to fix it. So that's what makes it populist, right? But then they have these ideas that are very beneficial to the elite class.
yeah, they come out with something that showcases critical thought and some type of a mostly um innocuous uh not very isn't high stakes in the things that they're critical about. When it comes to things like all these other issues, the economy, um gender, religion, religious expression, education, what they do is they ignore critical thought in that way. Well,
Right.
it's a strategic thing. But young people aren't about to ask the tough questions about those things because their families and stuff are connected to those ideologies. So it's so uh and it's from the leftist content creators that I watch. There's plenty of critical thought about important things and trivial things. Um, Maybe the appeal is ignoring the criticism of the things that matter. That might be what's more appealing.
Economics matter. Like inflation, how the Biden administration has been lying to the population of the United States that
So you
inflation
say,
is really low.
yeah,
Inflation has been horrendous the last few years, and he says that he's decreased inflation, the Biden administration. And it's like, where has he decreased inflation? The majority of the working classes have been complaining about inflation costs, the cost of inflation. And I think that was one of his most detrimental situations, because
I
he
think
just
they were
went
speaking out
lying.
against. I think they were speaking out against inflation. They were the on liberals were. Um, but what they were also speaking out against is religion in schools, and they're also speaking out against speaking out in pro being too outwardly pro labor and anti billionaire. If you, not everybody is on the same page as that with that. So I
Right.
think
Bernie
the
Sanders should have ran. Bernie Sanders should run again, to be honest. We lost a good leader there. He's a fantastic leader. I really want him to run again.
yeah, I was watching a content creator earlier, and he said Bernie Sanders is in 2016 is going to be like Gore in 2000, where it's like a fork in the road, and we took the wrong turn again. Like it could have gone either way, and that was just it's not. We don't have another chance. That was it. That was it. Um, and it was that way because and I had resentment towards the Democratic Party since then.
Of course.
Um,
Of course.
yeah, yeah, because they edged him out, and the two party system was always. And I knew this before 2016. And I thought this was going to be a change, and I thought it was going to be a change either away from the Democratic Party, or it was going to change the Democratic Party over to the left. Do you remember that? They kept on saying that. They kept on saying, even if I don't win, even if a leftist isn't in power, the fact that we're running one means that we're bringing the Democratic Party more to the left. That was all for votes. The Democratic Party did not move 1 inch.
They haven't. They
No.
they haven't. They're very, like I said previously, they're very centrist. Centrist left. Like they're not centrist right, but they're very centrist left. Typically to the left. Yes. So this is We Have Not Been Slain. I'm Priscilla Otero Guerra.
This is Ryan Moore.
So subscribe and like our page. Thank you.
Thank you.